All right, let's dive into the world of bees.
Ooh, bees.
We've got a YouTube video called Bee Facts from this channel FaxNet.
Oh, cool.
And get this, it turns out there's way more to bees than meets the eye.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Like, for starters, did you know there are something like 20,000 different species of bees out there?
Wow, I had no idea. I mean, I always think of honeybees or bumblebees,
Yeah, me too.
but 20,000.
It's wild. And they come in all different sizes, too. Apparently, there are some South American bumblebees that can grow to be over 1.5 inches long.
An inch and a half.
Yeah, like 4 times bigger than a regular honeybee.
Whoa, that's a big bee?
I know, right?
Almost scary.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah.
But, besides the size thing, one of the things that really struck me in this video was how organized bee societies are.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they have this super clear hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
The worker bees, the drones, and of course, the queen bee.
It is kind of like a little city, isn't it?
It really is.
Like a perfectly functioning little city.
Perfectly functioning. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
But all those worker bees, it makes you wonder, like, are they just born knowing how to do all that stuff?
Well, actually, no.
Okay, good. Because that would be kind of freaky.
It is pretty incredible, though. Like, for example, you know how they make honey?
Yeah.
The baby bees have to learn that from the older bees.
So it's like an apprenticeship.
Oh.
Ah, bee school. I love it.
Yeah.
But, for all their hard work, the video said worker bees only live for like 5 weeks.
That's so sad. All that work for just 5 weeks.
I know. It is kind of a bummer.
And the drones.
Oh, yeah. The
Their
drones.
lives are even shorter.
Right. The drones, their whole purpose is to mate with the queen,
Right. Yeah.
which, by the way, also happens to be their final act.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty intense. The video describes how, like, their abdomen literally rips apart during mating.
Oh, gosh, that is intense.
I know.
I guess that makes sense, though, right?
In a way.
Like, the queen needs to mate with enough drones
Yeah.
to, make sure there are diverse genes in the colony.
That makes sense.
And that helps keep the hive strong.
So it's like a brutal system.
Yeah.
But it keeps the whole colony going.
It's for the greater good, I guess.
Exactly.
Speaking of the queen, the video mentioned something about there being multiple queens sometimes
Yeah, that's right.
in one hive.
Sometimes a new queen will co-rule with the old queen for a while.
Interesting.
But other times, it's like a fight to the death.
Oh, wow.
Imagine that, right?
Nice.
You emerge from your little bee cell,
Yeah.
and you're immediately attacked by your own sister.
Oof, brutal.
Like, it's Game of Thrones Bee Edition.
Totally.
The queen who wins that battle, though, she's got a tough job ahead of her.
For sure.
I mean, laying up to 2,500 eggs every single day, that's a lot of responsibility.
That is a lot of responsibility.
Makes you tired just thinking about it.
Yeah, seriously.
But it also shows you how important the queen is, right?
Oh, yeah.
She's basically the mother of the entire colony.
She keeps it all going.
Right.
It is incredible, though, all the things bees can do.
Oh, for sure.
Like, did you know their brains are only the size of a sesame seed?
I did hear that.
But they can recognize faces.
It blew my mind when I heard that.
It's crazy.
Like, how is that even possible with a brain that tiny?
no.
And not only that, but apparently a worker bee's brain chemistry actually changes depending on what job they're doing.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah. So it's like they have different brains for different jobs.
So weird.
I know. How does that even work?
Well, it's all about efficiency.
Okay.
Their brains are like wired to adapt to whatever they're doing, to switch between all those different roles in the hive.
It's so cool.
Isn't that wild?
It is.
Like built-in multitasking.
Oh, yeah.
And have you seen their wings?
Their wings, they're amazing.
What about them? They can like rotate and twist.
Really?
Yeah, so they can make these super quick turns and even fly backwards.
That is impressive.
They're like the acrobats of the insect world.
Love that. Tiny little bee acrobats.
It's pretty amazing.
And then there's their vision. I mean, 5 eyes.
5 eyes.
2 big ones on the sides.
Yeah.
And 3 smaller ones on top. What's the point of all those extra eyes?
Well, turns out those extra eyes let them see ultraviolet light,
Ultraviolet light.
which we can't see, right?
Right.
But they can.
So what does that do for them?
Well, it helps them see patterns on flowers that guide them to the nectar and pollen.
Huh, like a secret map.
Exactly.
Wow.
They're literally seeing a whole world that we can't even perceive.
That's wild.
Yeah.
And don't even get me started on their sense of smell.
Oh, yeah.
With 170 odor receptors, they can smell things from miles away.
They put bloodhounds to shame.
It's like having a superpower.
It's like a built-in GPS for all the best food.
Oh, I like that. Like a foodie GPS.
Exactly.
Speaking of food, remember how we talked about bees having two stomachs?
Yeah.
One for digestion
Uh-huh.
and one just for storing nectar and water? The honey stomach.
Oh,
Like
right.
their own little to-go container.
Exactly.
It's so clever how they just like pack it all in there.
Bees are amazingly efficient, aren't they?
They really are. I'm loving all this bee trivia.
It's fascinating.
It is.
And that efficiency is a big part of what makes them so successful as a species.
I can see that.
They're like masters of their environment.
Totally.
They work together. They create this amazing society.
Yeah,
It not only benefits them, but it benefits the whole ecosystem.
that's so true.
The more we learn about bees, the more we realize how incredible they are.
I'm like starting to see why people are so fascinated by them.
Yeah.
There's so much we can learn from these tiny creatures. But, before we get too deep into the bee philosophy here,
Oh, yeah.
I'm kind of curious about their preferences.
Their preferences.
Like, what do they love and hate? What makes a bee tick?
Good question.
I mean, remember those giant bumblebees we were talking about earlier?
Yeah.
They're always hungry, like constantly on the hunt for food.
That makes sense, though. They're so big, they need a lot of fuel.
Yeah, exactly. They're like the foodies of the bee world.
I love that, the foodie bees.
But get this, they're also big caffeine fans.
Wait, what? Bees love coffee.
Well, apparently they're really attracted to the nectar of coffee flowers.
Huh. I never knew that.
And that nectar has caffeine in it naturally.
Wow, so they get a little buzz going.
Yeah, keeps them energized and ready to go.
That's so funny. Like tiny little coffee addicts.
Kinda, yeah. Maybe that's why I like them so much. We have that in common.
Yeah, the caffeine connection.
Exactly. But do they hate anything? Are there any smells they avoid?
You know what they can't stand?
What?
Peppermint.
Peppermint.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. That seems so harmless.
I know, right? But they absolutely hate it. They can smell it from far away.
So I guess if you want to keep bees away from something, just plant some peppermint.
Exactly. A natural bee repellent.
Huh. Good to know.
Yeah.
Well, it's incredible how much we're learning about their senses and behavior. But I'm also really curious about the honey itself.
Oh, the honey.
I mean, that's what bees are most famous for, right?
Absolutely. And you know what? The process of making honey is just as fascinating as everything else about them.
Oh, I bet. We've only just scratched the surface of this whole bee world.
I know. It's a whole universe in itself.
I love that. A bee universe.
It's amazing.
Welcome back. I don't know about you, but I'm still reeling from all that bee info.
Me too.
It's just amazing how these tiny little creatures can be so complex.
Seriously.
So before the break, we were just about to get into how bees make honey.
Oh, yeah. Liquid gold.
That's a great way to put it.
Right.
But how do they actually do it?
Well, the whole thing starts with those hard-working worker bees, right?
Yeah, the worker bees.
They're out there. They're flying from flower to flower.
Uh-huh.
They use their long tongues. They suck up that nectar.
Right into their honey stomachs.
Exactly.
That second stomach we were talking about.
It's like their own little honey tanker.
I love that. A honey tanker.
And once they filled it up, they head back to the hive.
Okay, so they get back to the hive, and then what? Do they just, like, dump it all into a giant honey pot?
Well, not exactly.
Okay, what happens?
There's this whole chain of bee-to-bee action that has to happen first.
Oh, wow.
So the forager bees, they come back, and they pass the nectar to other worker bees.
Hmm.
And then those bees, they chew on it and mix it with special enzymes from their bodies.
Wait a minute, they chew it?
Yeah.
Like gum?
Kind of.
Hmm.
See, the chewing helps to break down those complex sugars in the nectar into simpler sugars.
Oh, interesting.
Makes it easier to digest. And the enzymes they add, that helps keep the nectar from going bad.
So it's like a pre-digestion process.
Yeah, I guess you could call it that. And then once it's all chewed up and mixed, they spread it out in these thin layers inside the honeycomb cells
Ah, yes, the honeycomb.
with those perfect little hexagons.
With hexagons, yeah. Why hexagons, though?
Well, that's another example of how incredibly efficient bees are.
Okay, how so?
See, hexagons are the most space-efficient shape you can use to build a structure, like a honeycomb.
Huh.
So they can store the maximum amount of honey using the least amount of wax.
That's pretty brilliant.
They're like tiny little mathematicians.
I love that. So they spread the nectar out, and then what?
Then comes the drying stage.
The drying stage.
Yeah, they have to get rid of all that extra water from the nectar.
Oh, right, to make it thick and syrupy.
Exactly. So they fan their wings like crazy over the honeycomb,
Oh, wow.
creating this current of air that just evaporates the water away.
So like a natural dehydration process powered by bee wings.
You got it. And once the honey is just the right consistency, they seal up those honeycomb cells with wax.
Oh, right. Those little golden storage containers.
Exactly.
It's just amazing to think that all that effort goes into making honey.
It really is. It's like this perfectly choreographed dance.
And then the beekeepers come along and harvest it, leaving enough for the bees, of course.
Right. You got to leave enough for the bees.
It's a perfect partnership. But, we touched on this a little bit earlier, but bees are amazing communicators, too.
Oh, yeah.
Like with the waggle dance, but they also use those chemical signals, pheromones.
Right. It's like their secret language.
But how does that actually work? How do they use pheromones to talk to each other?
Well, different pheromones, they trigger different responses in other bees.
Interesting.
For example, the queen bee?
Mm-hmm.
She gives off pheromones that, regulate how the worker bees act.
Wow.
Keeps them all focused, keeps the hive harmonious.
So it's like a chemical leadership strategy.
That's a great way to put it. Chemical leadership.
And it's not just the queen, right?
No, the worker bees use pheromones too.
Okay, what for?
Well, like if a bee stings something,
Yeah,
it releases this alarm pheromone
an alarm.
that tells the other bees there's danger.
So it's like a chemical call to arms.
Exactly.
Wow.
And then, of course, there are the pheromones involved in mating.
Oh, right.
The queen, she releases certain pheromones during her mating flight.
And what do those do?
Well, those attract the drones.
From miles away.
Exactly. It's like a bee love potion.
I love it. A bee love potion.
Yeah.
So it's all these chemical signals going back and forth.
Yeah, a whole hidden world of communication.
I know, it's incredible. But, for all their amazing abilities, bees are facing some tough times these days.
That's true.
The video mentioned that their populations are declining
It's a big problem.
because of things like climate change, pesticide use, and habitat loss.
Yeah,
It's pretty scary, actually,
it is.
because they're so sensitive to changes in the environment. So can you break that down a little? Like, how do those threats actually impact bees?
Well, let's take climate change, for example.
Okay, climate change.
With climate change, flowering patterns can get all messed up.
Oh, right.
So it becomes harder for bees to find the food they need.
Makes sense.
And then you've got extreme weather events like droughts and floods.
Yeah,
Those can damage their nests and make it hard for them to get out and forage.
right.
And then there's pesticides.
Pesticides, yeah.
Those are a huge problem.
Yeah, in what way?
Well, they can be directly toxic to bees. Just kill them outright.
Oh, wow.
But even in smaller doses, they can have these subtle effects.
Like what?
Well, they can mess with their navigation, their memory, their overall health.
So they're basically poisoning the very creatures that help us grow our food.
It's a terrible cycle, isn't it?
It really is.
And then on top of all that, you've got habitat loss.
Habitat loss, yeah.
As we keep converting more and more land for agriculture and development,
Yeah.
we're wiping out all those diverse plants that bees need for food and shelter.
It's like we're shrinking their world.
Exactly. Making it harder and harder for them to survive. And the worst part is, we need them to survive.
Right. I mean, they're so important for our own survival, too.
Absolutely.
We can't forget that.
Bees are crucial for pollinating so many of the crops we eat.
Yeah.
Fruits, vegetables, nuts.
Yeah, yeah.
Even some of the plants that feed livestock.
So without bees, our entire food system would be in trouble.
Big trouble.
It's not just about the honey. It's about the foundation of our food supply.
Exactly. They're the unsung heroes of agriculture.
Totally. It's clear that we need to do more to protect these incredible pollinators, but what can we actually do? Like, as individuals, what can we do to make a difference?
Well, we talked about creating bee-friendly habitats in our own backyards and communities.
Right, right. Planting more flowers, avoiding pesticides.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And choosing the right kinds of flowers, too.
Yeah.
Native plants are best, the ones bees are used to.
So it's like creating little oases for them.
Yeah. Even in the middle of a city, you can create a little haven for bees.
I love that. And we should all avoid using pesticides, right?
Oh, absolutely. There are lots of natural pest control methods you can try instead.
Good to know.
Remember, even small amounts of pesticides can harm bees.
So it's like a choice between a perfectly manicured lawn and a thriving ecosystem.
And for me, the choice is clear.
Mine too. But we can also do things beyond our own gardens, right?
Absolutely. You can support organizations that are working